So this is the second mono printing instructional video, and I just want to say that I'm sitting on the grass with Life cereal in my pocket. I was gonna use them in the monoprint, but I forgot about it. So right here, I'm using a plastic bag, and my big idea was that I was going to um, add a bunch more ink to the glass, and then the plastic bag was covering that spot up, but didn't work out that great, um, as you'll see in a minute. I just didn't. I don't think I laid down enough ink, but that's kind of the nice thing about these sorts of prints is that they're just kind of trial and error. Um, I'm trying to be really careful with how I'm removing this because I don't want to mar the ink that I've got on here. And I finally get it up. And additionally, when I was doing this video, it started raining. And also right here, you can see that I'm trying to use my brayer as kind of like one of the main art tools in this, which I think is fine. So I'm just pressing it down here, and I'm going over it with the brayer. I'm putting a fair amount of pressure down when I'm doing this, um, and it still wasn't enough to pick up as much detail as I wanted. As you can see, it's not that great looking, but I used that paper again, and I definitely used the plastic bag. So now I have this plastic bag that's like really nicely inked, essentially, and I'm going to re-ink the pad of ink I've got here. I'm going to get a little bit more, and it's starting to rain. I want to cover up that ink, and so I'm putting down a relatively good pad of ink there. Um, it is kind of difficult. I think it takes some experience to understand how much ink you need, how much is too much, how much isn't enough. I think you guys are struggling with that a little bit. Um, so I'm using my brayer here to just flatten the bag so it makes contact with the ink and it stays there. And now I'm just using an eraser. And I'm just using an eraser because it's like a nice size. And I'm just drawing into the ink on the plastic bag. And I think I drew like a fish and a smiley face, just as an example here. Um, and I'm just making some squiggles. And the real nice thing about monoprinting is as long as there's a lot of ink down, you can pretty much do anything. And the reason that these monoprints work is that the paper, you see I'm pushing the paper down on the ink, it seals to the ink. Like basically the ink is what's keeping that paper from shifting. And so that's why we always need like a good amount of ink down there. And then the rest of it, you can just kind of do whatever. You can draw into the ink, you can add things to it, you can take things away, you can sandwich things in between, as we did in the last project. Um, but you can see as I lift this up, I did like a fairly nice job getting some very nice detail from the bag, as you can see. Um, and the drawings just come out really clearly because you're just pushing all the ink away from that area. Um, so I'm relatively happy with that one. I wish I put that Life cereal in there. I think it would have looked good rather than just turning into tiny crumbs in my pocket. Uh, and another thing that I do here is now, because I already inked up that area underneath the bag, I'm going to take the bag off relatively carefully, and I'm going to make another print of where I pressed that bag down with the brayer. And I think it works so well because I already like pressed the bag pretty firmly into that ink. And so it's made like a very specific impression, and I'm drawing back into that kind of ink that's left behind with my eraser as well. And I'm trying to just show you how this works rather than like spend a lot of time making a drawing. Um, but yeah, I'm just kind of going back and forth on there to kind of do some shading, and then I think I just make like a squiggle up and down the bag to kind of be like a little highlight thing. And yeah, I'm just adding it right there. And the paper, I think there's enough ink, especially with that stuff left over from the bag, that I can just put my old piece of paper down there, and there's enough ink that it's still going to seal with the glass. And I'm just going to go back over it with my brayer. And yeah, and I think I actually like this one the best. And I think what I'm going to ask you to do this for all of your prints is to use basically essentially the positive and the negative of your monoprints. And there it is. It's upside down. There we go. And yeah, you can see how much detail is still there just from the process of picking up the print from when the bag was actually there. You're essentially kind of creating two prints this way. You made a print in the glass, and then you made a print that you're picking up on the paper. And I kind of like having the old print below that. It kind of acts as like a nice highlight. And yeah, that's about it. So I'm going to have you do a few of these using household items that you can feel comfortable throwing away. And hopefully you get creative and have fun and draw into them. And yeah,